What's going on, guys? Today I want to talk about this card right here, Debunk, which if you're playing hat format, you probably should be aware of this card, or in general, you probably know of this card. It's a very commonly side-decked card, but lately, at this current moment, Mortaltech Monthly 35 is going on, and I've been watching a lot of the gameplay and doing replay reviews on them, which some of which have already come out so far, while other ones, you'll probably see after this video's already posted. But something I've been noticing more and more is rather than Debunk being in the side deck, which it's pretty much always been, a lot of people have known it to be a very common hat format side deck card, with occasionally someone will play one or two in the main deck. I've been noticing that a lot more players now are choosing to main deck Debunk rather than having it in the side, or if they are, playing the extra copies in the side that aren't in the main deck. So for this video, I just want to talk about why this might be, as well as, should you be playing this in the main deck? Is it just a phase at the moment? And all the questions related to that in general. So let's get straight into it. So first off, just in case anyone hasn't seen this card, maybe you're new to the format or something like that, Debunk is a counter trap card that says, I'll just read the effect here at the bottom, that when a monster effect is activated in the hand or graveyard, negate the activation, and if you do, banish it. So this is a very powerful card for a handful of reasons. Part of that comes down to the fact that it is a negation, it negates activation, as well as it banishes the card, which is very powerful when there's cards in the format such as, Call the Haunted, Soul Charge, and just a ton of other cards that really interact with the graveyard. And so this card is really good against a lot of the different hand traps in the format, as well as just a lot of the archetypes and the cards that are built into those. And I think to explain this perfectly, I want to go over, just look at quickly some of the decks that have been entering these past few online hat format tournaments. Usually I do separate videos on them, and I have done them for these three events that I just want to quickly look at. But if you want a more in-depth, explanation of those events, you can go and find those videos on my channel. But here is H.A.T Elimination 16, and just looking at the most represented decks here, we see Artifact Traptrix, Constellar Artifact, and Lightsworn Ruler, as well as, several other decks that you can take a look at here on what, people entered with. But then let's go to Pleiades Payout 4, which the topping decks were Geargia, there were 5 of them, Mermail, which there were 3, and Artifact Traptrix, which there were also 3. Moving along to Mortaltech Monthly 34, the most represented deck was Geargia, and then Artifact Traptrix, as well as, Spellbook, Mermail, Bujin, Sylvan, and so on and so forth. So why am I bringing this up? So the thing to talk about with Debunk is, I guess here, let's just look here at the H.A.T Elimination 16. All these decks have something in common, and that's they all are decks that get hit really heavily by Debunk. So, for example, against Constellar Artifact, all the artifact monsters can be hit by Debunk, which usually that is the opponent's form of disruption, is using the artifacts to actually pop your face-up cards. It's non-targeting, it activates in graveyard, it is a pain to deal with. Or say against Lightsworn Ruler, there's tons of effects that activate in graveyard, whether that be like Eclipse Wyvern or, just Wolf, just so many different things. You have other decks, as I mentioned previously, Geargia. While this might not seem like a deck that gets hit directly by Debunk, the Debunk is a great card against the hands. Because Debunk is a counter trap and negates activation and everything else, you are able to use it during the damage step and stuff, and that will not only stop the hands from floating into one another, which can be very difficult, but it also banishes it, meaning, they can't just soul charge it back like I mentioned before. And with Geargia being so represented, a long time ago I had made a video talking about the hat format meta cycle, and how once you start seeing a lot more Geargia, the result is you'll see a lot more Artifact Traptrix popping up and stuff, because that's like the main rivalry of the format. So now Debunk is a great card against the Geargia hands deck, but it's also a great card against the Artifact Trap Tricks deck. And in that video, I talked about once those two decks start seeing more play, you start seeing other decks that kind of have decent matchups. So as I mentioned before, we have decks like Spellbook, we have decks like Mermail popping in the format, decks like Bujin. And the thing is besides just the in archetype, how I said Debunk is a great card against the artifacts, the hands, it also hits cards that activate in hand. So things like even the Spellbook deck that have High Priestess, that's going to stop them. Mermail, it's going to stop the Lins, the Megalos, the Teus, and all the Atlanteans that go to grave and activate the effect. And it also gets rid of those resources so they can't reuse them, because they're getting banished. Even, again, decks like Bujins that have all the graveyard effects and things. Debunk is just an amazing card. So right now, because of how the format is, how it's in that control aspect of the format, and it's slowly transitioning back to what, a more wild, open format that, you can already kind of see it opening up with all these different decks entering these events. You see Debunk more just because it hits everything. It can even hit the Max C's, the DD Crows. So you can put it in even as a defensive card to make sure that you're not losing to certain hand traps. Another thing that's interesting is while Debunk is in the format, something that comes up is you'll also from time to time see more decks like the Artifact Gravekeeper deck, because Necro Valley in Hat format is preventing cards from being banished. So it's a way to counter things like the Debunk that would then banish, meaning the decks like Artifact Gravekeeper can play the hands and stuff because they don't have the fear of this card, banishing their hands. Overall, like I said, this card is starting to see a lot more play in the main deck. And so it's something that you need to be keeping in mind if you're planning to play in some of these hat format tournaments, whether, you're playing one of these decks that get hurt by it, or just in general, you saw the decks that are coming to these events and taking up the most spots, and this just hits everything. It's overall a very solid card, and in general, I could see this being, a staple in decks moving forward, at least for the time being, and so that's why I wanted to bring this card up, because overall it is a very solid card. Now, with that in mind, there are a lot more artifact decks and things being played, meaning there's a lot more artifact ignitions, a lot more double cyclones and stuff like that. So another thing that you might start seeing more, especially for decks like Geargia, is they are probably going to start playing a little more wiretaps just to deal with stuff like this. But when decks start playing wiretaps, the more decks that go wide, like Mermail, become a little better because they aren't going to be playing as much back row. So, there's going to be a lot more dead cards in certain decks for that reason. But in general, Debunk is an amazing card. I think for the time being, as I said before, it is going to stay in the format. And, if you don't own your copies for IRL play, maybe it's a good thing to have these. Though, it is a card that, again, it's been in the side decks for a long time. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Do you think this is a card that is worth main decking? Do you still prefer it in the side? Do you think in certain matchups it's just overall better, so it's better to keep that in the side? All that good stuff, let me know in the comment section. But if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like on it. Comment any questions or videos you want to see in the future. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell to get notified anytime I put a new video out. Share this video with your friends. And anyways, guys, I will see you in the next video.